and go. Front end wheel spin. Yep. Good power. And third gear we hit 60. Hello and welcome to another Kyle Connor video. You join me here with the Volvo XC60 T8 plug-in hybrid. This one is the turbocharged and supercharged 4-cylinder with electric motor. Now, I have spent tons of time in these modern plug-in Volvos. It's windy out here. Let's jump in the quiet and serene cabin. Absolutely love it. This spec is perfect. Denim blue over blonde with all the luxury seating. This one's an Inscription, which gives you the finer grain leather. If you're buying a Volvo, you have to get an Inscription just because this leather is so much nicer. The only thing this car is missing, it has air-conditioned seats, it has Bowers & Wilkins, it's got air suspension, which is awesome. The only thing it's really missing is massaging seats. When I click the little button on the side of the seat here, you can see just buttons for lumbar, no massager. That's fine, but it would be nice. So, as you know, this is my personal channel where I get to rant to you about cars that I really enjoy and drive and share my thoughts with them. If you're looking for the full review, things that are practical like cost and other things, make sure you head over to Out of Spec Reviews YouTube channel, and on there you can see so much more about the XC60. It has the best sound system I've ever heard in a car. Acura system's good, Bentley system is good, but this at high volume, this Bowers & Wilkins is amazing. It does have the typical Volvo speaker rattle though. Every Volvo I've had on test, a whole bunch of them with Bowers & Wilkins, and I always try and keep them for longer than a week because I do truly love these cars. I get a rattle in that speaker and it's probably just because I'm jamming out, but that shouldn't happen. This one's a 2021, which means it has the updated speaker cones and some other stuff. So let's take it for a drive and I'll tell you a little bit more about it. And the first thing we should do is start with a launch, should we not? So let's see, I have the battery in charge mode. Let's take it out of that for now and we'll put it back in later on because I do have to do an electric test after this. So foot on the brake, flooring it with the front, and go. Front end wheel spin. Yep, good power. And third gear we hit 60. When you brake boost it, it does allow for faster shifts, and they happen a little bit sooner as well, which is really nice. So overall, great transmission for launching, for wide open. Now, I got some weird niggles about this drivetrain too. Let's get up the hill. Once we go on the downhill section of this drive, we'll put it into charge mode. So wide open acceleration. We have a 2-liter 4-cylinder engine that's supercharged and turbocharged. Everyone's been through this drivetrain. If you're watching this video, you know how it works. That gives it a primarily front-wheel drive feeling because about 316 horsepower, plus or minus, is powering the front tires. And you can see it's very capable. We're doing, big numbers pretty quickly there. And we're on a back road, so I don't need to fly. We're not on a racetrack. So really good acceleration from the front axle. Now the rear axle is powered by an electric motor not connected to the front wheels. The battery pack is under here in the center console, which means you don't get a very deep storage compartment. And that's okay with me. That's fine. I would get the plug-in hybrid of all the Volvos. In the US, we get T5, T6, T8. I would get the T8, which gives you the T6's engine with the electric stuff. We've been through this. I keep mentioning it. But I would get that just because it's the fastest one. We're talking just about 400 horsepower here. Now, this particular car does not have the Polestar optimization. This is like the XC60 luxury build minus the massaging seats. Now we're going to put the battery in charge mode. So that's going to use the combustion engine and the electric motors to regen and charge the battery pack. It has a starter motor / generator / power assist on the back side of the engine, and that's what turns the engine on and off, so you're not using a starter motor. And it has a full electric motor in the rear. You can never get enough power from the rear to get any hint of oversteer or power assistance. It really does drive like a front-wheel drive vehicle in a performance setting. Now, these are Volvo vehicles. They're not meant to be performance cars, but for what they are, these things just drive so incredibly well. Anything from the XC40 to the XC90, including their S60 and 90 models, and I love the wagons. The V90 is one of my favorites. They all just drive the same, which is so funny. They all have the same exact driving. Like if you were to describe how this car drives versus a Polestar 1, you'd be hard-pressed to tell the difference from a chassis dynamics perspective. The way that they get into a corner, the way that the powertrain works, it's all pretty much the same, copy and pasted on different chassis or different length of chassis. And I love that about Volvos, because you kind of just get the same luxury in all of them. You just choose the size that you want and the shape. And I think that's great. Like, this XC60 is no less premium than an XC90. I love that you don't have to get the big one to get the luxury here. And I think if I had to buy any single modern car to just cruise around in, a car that I would suggest that's premium and not pretentious, always comes up with Volvos, it would be any of the modern ones. I love, typically I try and stay away from judging entire manufacturer vehicle lineups and just judge vehicle as their own against competitors in that segment. But overall, I mean, the Volvo lineup is just something special. From a design perspective, I would argue the XC60 is probably the weakest, other than the S90. Not a fan of how that car looks. I think this could use a little bit more of a chiseled design, but that's okay. Nice Subaru there. Looks like a WRX. Yeah, so it's beautiful. Everything that's good about Volvos is here. You get the nice leathers, the sound system. Pricing, this one's $71,000, which is a lot, but worth every penny, I think. I think the best thing to do is to buy one of these CPO'd for a 10-year unlimited mileage warranty. Volvo owners are typically types of people that will keep their cars a long time, and with all of this drivetrain complications, I'm not sure how well they'll hold up long term. Now, I did ask an engineer once about plug-in hybrid engines, because one of the things that really irks me about plug-in hybrids, especially that have so much boost like here in the Volvo, is I can do most of my driving around town fully electric. So I can go here on this little drive mode selector, I can select pure, or the way I have it is in individual is pure, but with the comfort suspension, because it tries to lower itself down in pure for efficiency. So I have electric, but everything else inefficient, because I'm just cruising around to Starbucks and back for the most part. I guess we should go for a pass of this guy. Okay, let's execute that. Here we go. Yeah, so I just drive around in electric mode for the most part, and the thing is, it's great there. But for the engine, the combustion engine, to just kick on, what happens if it's like -5 degrees Fahrenheit outside, which is very common around here in Colorado in the wintertime, even colder. And like, what happens if I'm just cruising and then all of a sudden I decide to go for a hard pass, and I put my foot down past the kick down switch and turn this engine on at full boost? Like, isn't it just going to explode? Somehow they don't. Now, I have had one situation, my mechanical sympathy gets the best of me, where I've had to do this, where I was driving an XC90 T8 on media loan, and I had to get around someone and pull out and really get up and go. And I was driving in electric mode, and I put my foot to the floor, because you have to go past the kickdown switch in pure mode in order to turn the engine on. I backed off immediately, so it was kick down to turn the engine on, and then get off the throttle. But it was enough where I heard the supercharger kick on below, the supercharger's active below 3,000 RPM, then it decouples on a clutch. So I heard the supercharger kick on, and I was like, oh, my butt pickered, and I was like, oh God, I can't believe I just turned the engine on. It was fine. Like, I don't know what I was expecting. I guess I was expecting a rod to just go up to the moon. But it seemed okay. So an engineer told me that actually plug-in hybrid engines will last longer than their combustion power plants. With the starter motor generator, there's no wear and tear from it turning the engine on and off, which I think is kind of neat. And also they're able to control the temperature range of the engine so much. So while you might have a couple of hard cold starts with no warm-up time, that's pretty detrimental. You're not cold starting the engine every single time you move the car. If you just have to move it from one place in the driveway to another, if you have to move, it sort of protects it from some future cold starts. So I thought that was kind of neat, but still not sure totally how well that's going to work out long term. If you're a type of driver who's sporty and just likes to punch it and it starts up every single time at boost, I can't imagine that's going to be good for it. But for a normal Volvo driver, it's probably fine. And, then the other thing is you're able to turn the engine on and off and use it not only where it's most efficient to use the engine, but also where it's going to keep the temperature range of the engine the same. If we were coasting down, like I have it here locked in power mode, charging the battery with the charge function on, like we are now, it's cooling off. The engine's cooling down as we go down the hill, and then when we go back up, let's say make a U-turn, it's going to heat back up. So the engine's being heat cycled constantly. With a C8 Corvette coming this way. That looks pretty nifty, so we'll give him a nice peace sign. Yellow seat belts on a red car. Not sure about that spec, but to each their own. When you can control the engine on and off, you can control the temperature range, which means when the engine's hot after climbing the hill, it's actually better for it from a longevity standpoint to turn the engine off and keep it hot. It's already hot. It doesn't care if it's going to stay hot. The only real component that would care would be the oil inside of the turbocharger, and there's an electric oil pump that keeps running during stop-start operation so that you're not just charring your oil that's going to be sitting in the turbocharger. Kind of a neat setup. It still hurts my brain every time it turns the combustion engine on. I just don't know if I'll ever be able to get over it. And there's so much to think about from an enthusiast standpoint, from my standpoint. Let's just put this car in hybrid mode, for example. So this is how I hate to drive the car, because I'm constantly thinking, okay, so if I go this far down on the accelerator pedal, let me take it out of charge and then you'll see. So I get the water droplet that's full right now means the combustion engine's on. Now it's off. We're driving in EV mode. I can go up to this little switch here, this little notch, and then there we go. Now the combustion engine's on. And then I just hit the brakes, so which means it's going to turn off again in a second. And so it's like on, off, on, off, on, off. And I'm constantly like, let me optimize this. So what I've done is I either drive the car in pure mode, which is like full eco mode. And one of my favorite features about the updates to the 2021 Volvos over the 2020s is I can now go to the kickdown switch and we're running in electric mode. See, I'm wide open throttle, but the combustion engine is off, and it's got fairly okay performance. Now, if I were to, let's just do it for video demonstration, if I were to just hit it all the way, see, engine on, it's not boosting yet, it's revving, and it's building boost. So, Volvo does protect the engine in the sense where revs aren't really going to hurt it. It's all about the boost. So even during here when the engine's warm, when I went past the kickdown switch in pure mode, it revved out, but it didn't give me full power. It felt like it really gave me about 40% of the engine's power. So it was limiting boost because it had just turned on. It had to build oil pressure. So there is some software self-protection in there, which is pretty nice. Next thing is in electric mode. Let's go back to pure for a second. You can do all of your driving around town in pure mode to the kickdown switch. It's totally fine. As soon as you get out on the highway in pure mode in any of the Volvos, especially the bigger ones like the XC60 and XC90, you really do start to overheat the drivetrain, and you just get a power meter that starts backing off. It can do about 70 miles per hour consistently cruising. And then, well, one, you're going to be chewing through battery very quickly. And secondly, let's go back to charging battery. Then it puts us in hybrid mode, and it's going to lock the combustion engine on. Since we're on this kind of road, we'll go back to power. So if you're cruising in electric mode on the highway and it does start to overheat, it doesn't just shut down the electrics. It just backs off the power available. And so you just drive around at foot wide open as it's managing the top end of its thermal capacity. The next interesting thing is you can overheat the drivetrains when driving hard. Now, I did not drive this XC60 that hard. This is the Inscription. I kind of took it up the hill for a POV motoring video. Link in the description if you're interested. And it's a busy day out here. I didn't drive it too hard. Now, if this was like a Wednesday morning at 6 a.m., I probably would have ripped it a little bit harder. And I could have gotten it to the point, especially on a road like this, to where I've overheated the electric components. I'm not sure if it's the battery pack, the motor, or the inverter, but either way, it just shuts down the plug-in hybrid portion. So especially if you're going to a track day or something like this, we've had this happen on track in V60 Polestar. That was a great corner, sir. Wow, that was just like blatantly straight. You know, it just shuts it down. Basically what you get is when you go into this hybrid drivetrain for everyday use, you get this gauge that shows power, regen. When you go into the red down here, it means that you're using friction brakes. It just pulls the red all the way up to the dash. It doesn't let it charge or discharge any power. So electric driving is prohibited, and it doesn't let it charge. It just shuts down the drivetrain and lets it cool down. And that's fine. That's, you know, most people aren't tracking their Volvos. But when I had the V60 Polestar a year ago today, actually, had that exact problem on track. And what a car that is. Almost bought one. One of my all-time favorites, one of the all-time greats is Volvo V60 T8 Polestar. Just an amazing all-around car. Not a drifty car, very front-wheel drive bias, but the right size, the right image, the right level of premiumness, the right level of comfort. It's just a good look, I think, to be driving a Volvo wagon. Anyway, this one has the crystal shifter too, which is kind of nice. I like that. Lights up at night, which is beautiful. So there's so much about this Volvo drivetrain as we're following this guy driving down the other side of the road. I mean, people might say I drive quickly, sure, but I'm never doing anything blatantly like that. Oh, Focus ST, there we go. That looked good. This guy's driving into oncoming traffic. Oh, you see the Volvo just stood on the brakes for a second? This is another interesting Volvo quirk. It's very happy to stab the brake pedal to get your attention. So for forward collision warning, it will just pulse on the brake discs. This warps discs in Volvos like no other, and thankfully they do replace them under warranty. So if you ever get into a Volvo with warped discs, I've been in so many press cars with them warped, they just replace them under warranty, even if you're an owner, which is great. So that's a good little tip there for Volvos. Also, when you drive them hard, a couple interesting things happen. If you're the only person in the car and you're ripping, it will start to show a warning. This is on Polestar 1 and any Volvo, that the passenger seatbelt is unbuckled. And I just think that's the funniest thing. I don't know why. It's only when you're like on track really shredding this car. The next weird oddity that it does, look at this cornering. That was great. The next weird oddity that it does is the Volvo will, if you have ESC Sport on, which I do, which allows a little bit of slip coming into a corner. In a car like this with the air suspension, it's pretty loosey-goosey and definitely doesn't love to be hustled. But in like the XC60 Polestar or V60 Polestar, if you drive them really hard and get the brakes hot enough, the ESC comes up with a fault because your brakes are hot and it can't work as effectively as when the brakes are cool, and you end up faulting out the system briefly, and then it turns itself back on. So you're constantly hitting ESC Sport mode going down the road trying to get a little bit of slip. There's no way to fully disable traction control in any Volvos, and honestly that's fine because front wheel drive bias, you're never going to get any drifty stuff. I could go on all day about this drivetrain. It's really a neat drivetrain. I really enjoy it because it gives me something to think about and to manage while I'm driving it. I can manage the combustion stuff and the electric stuff, the charging and the engine, and I kind of enjoy that. Do I think plug-in hybrids make sense? Not really. I think they're kind of the worst of both worlds. I think you either get a really good electric car or a really good combustion vehicle, and this compromise solution is just that. It's a compromise. And check this modded Can-Am Spider out with the fogs. Nice. And those are actually pretty fun. I do enjoy them. I know a lot of people hate on them, but they're kind of cool. So Volvo XC60 T8, the size of the 60 I think is perfect. I really like the 60 chassis in general. I would go personally, if it were me, for the V60 T8 Polestar. You can only get the Polestar T8 in the US, or you can get a T5 cross country, I think, are the two. So we have weird Volvo models, but like in Europe you can get a V90 T8, which is just the bomb. They're great. So what I'm gonna do is end this video here pretty soon. I've ranted to you about the weirdness of Volvos, and I like them because they're so quirky and interesting and different from pretty much anything else you can buy on the road. I think they look great. They drive way better than they deserve to. They have serious acceleration, especially when everything's not really hot like it is right now in the car, because I was just shredding it. But if you kind of like cruising around town and then you punch it, it's like, whoa, it really throws you back. A real nice surge of power. And yeah, kind of a quirky, very quirky drivetrain. So thanks so much for watching another Kyle Connor video here in the XC60 T8. I hope you enjoy Volvos as much as I do, or maybe you think I'm crazy for loving these things, but I think they're worth the money. They look great. They're sort of timeless in the way that they are designed. I'm very curious to see how well they hold up long term. I've seen a couple of XC90 T8s from like 2016 with 120,000+ miles for sale, no warnings, and they say they drive just fine. So who knows? It'll be hard to say how these things hold up long term. I'd love to find a really high mileage one and take it for a drive. So thanks for watching, and we will see you on the next one. Bye-bye.